Oh, we've all got to say got it. There we go. So in this session, I'm going to give you some practical tips for building resilience. For you personally and for your team, an opportunity to connect with each other. That's the breakout room. And then your questions. So scribble them down or pop them in the chat as we're going along. Quick question for you, first of all, though, just to use the chat. I'm very happy for the slides to be shared, Ellie. So that's not a problem at all. Tell me how you're feeling today in the chat on a scale of 1 to 5. 1 being it's a struggle that I'm sat upright and I'm here, and 5 is I'm tip top. Thank you very much. I'm probably about 3.5 today. Okay, great. Thank you. Got some 3s, some 2s, 3.5, 3s. Okay. 3.5.
Yeah.
Yes, Lisa, excellent. Great. Keep them coming. See a steady stream. How you're feeling. Now I can hear somebody not on mute. So I'm gonna. Once I did a session and someone was ordering croissants and a latte in a shop. I don't think you're doing that. But yeah, if you can put yourself on mute, that really helps me. Thank you very much. Okay, so for many of us, it feels like this. Coming out of a pandemic, but by no means is the impact of it over. Massive uncertainty. There's been a huge change in terms of how we work. 3 years ago, we wouldn't all be online doing a webinar. We'd want to be in a room somewhere. There's increased need for so many of the charities that I work with, and I'm assuming you too, that you're needing to raise more money. There's more need in terms of what your beneficiaries need. Your donors' needs are changing as well. Your donors' expectations are changing. And so I guess my point is, I'm not going to labour this point. I mean, I'm telling you things that you already know, but if you're feeling low on resilience and motivation, it's not a surprise, is it? It is quite normal, and you are certainly not on your own. So what to do about it? So just so we're clear on what I'm talking about, resilience, the definition is it's the ability to deal with, find strengths in, or recover from difficulties. And motivation, I'm defining that as the enthusiasm for doing something, for doing that, for turning up every day, from doing your role, and keeping going. And when I was first talking about this session, one of the big conversations that we had was, well, fundraisers are already resilient, almost by the nature of the role that you do and the type of approach to the world that you need to take in order to be a good fundraiser. You're already resilient. It is likely that you'll get at least as many no's as you'll get yeses. And part of fundraising is about dusting yourself off and asking again and keeping going. And it is relentless at the best of times. I know, I've been a fundraiser. It's a difficult job. And then you layer on all of the things that have happened over the last few years and the ongoing uncertainty. And it's no wonder we might be feeling a bit sort of burnt out or out of steam. So in terms of kind of practical tips, the first one is around keeping your bucket topped up. So my belief is that we've all got a bucket of energy, if you like, and the things that we need to do to keep it topped up. You'll be nodding and you'll know this already, some of these things. It's about getting enough sleep. It's about doing exercise every day. It's about eating healthily and doing the things that replenish your energy. So I mean things like, who are the people that you hang out with once you've finished chatting with them, you feel better than before? What are the activities and the things that bring you joy, that when you have finished doing them, you feel better? They're kind of keeping your bucket topped up, if you like. And the level of your bucket impacts absolutely everything. If your bucket is leaky and the levels in it get really low, that's burnout. That's when you've reached a point where you feel that you can't do anything. So the important thing is keeping that bucket topped up every day, doing things every day, and it impacts everything. It impacts your confidence, your motivation, how you feel about the world and life in general. But I think the big challenge is that knowing what to do and actually doing it can often be two very different things. So a practical habit that a lot of my clients use that have proved to be very helpful is keeping something called a book of truths. And this is really about sort of reflection and acknowledgement. I think we're so busy that we often don't take a step back to go, oh, what have I achieved this week? What have I achieved this month? And kind of, well done, I got a lot done. We've always got more on our list than is humanly possible to achieve. And we kind of, as human beings, we have a propensity to focus in on the things we haven't done rather than celebrate the things that we have done. So getting into this habit of reflection can be a really helpful thing to do. So in your book of truths, this could be a physical book, or it could be a file on your computer or in your phone, but it's keeping a record of, first of all, the things that you're pleased with and proud of. I run a network called the Lucidity Network, and once a month we do a half-hour session where in a Zoom room, we're noting down the things we're pleased with and proud of and sharing them with others. And I ask people how they're feeling at the start of the session and then at the end of the session on that scale of 1 to 5. And they've normally gone up a notch or two, because just that act of recognizing what we've achieved can make a massive difference to how we're feeling, our resilience and our motivation. So the second thing is about keeping feedback from other people. And, when your manager says, great job, well done, or a colleague says, thank you, that is a small thing and can be make a massive impact on how we're feeling. When you're just sort of sat there thinking, oh, another application to write, and someone says, oh, thanks so much for that. The difference is huge, and it's a small, simple thing. And I think some of the challenges for us is if you're working remotely or flexibly and you're not in the office every day with everybody, some of the feedback that you'd give just as you were walking past somebody's desk that you wouldn't even think about, saying thanks for that, or that was really great, you have to be more deliberate about now. So if we're thinking about building motivation and resilience for your whole team, if everyone in your team has some sort of version of the book of truths, part of your role is to help your colleagues fill their book of truths. So being more deliberate about that feedback. And I don't mean waiting for a one-to-one and having a formal conversation about it. I mean, every day, is there something that somebody has done that you can make sure that you're acknowledging and saying thank you to help them fill their book of truths up? And I think for me, what I've experienced is this can work both ways. The absence of feedback can erode motivation and can reduce your resilience. And when we don't get feedback, we fill in the gaps and we assume things feel worse than they actually are. If someone doesn't say anything about what you've done, you tend to go, oh, was that okay? So yeah, it does work both ways. So have a think about a practical way to keep that bucket topped up every single day and not let it get right down to, the burnout levels, is this concept of a book of truths. Okay, so the second thing is about making time, because time to think and to rest is your fuel. Now, this requires a bit of a mindset shift, because what I find with most of my clients is that we'll put in time to think or time to rest or time to be creative when we've done everything else on our list. And the list's never finished. The list is always getting longer and longer. So for me, a way that I've been able to prioritize making time to rest, because that's my fuel, that's me keeping my bucket topped up so I can do my best job possible, is shifting my mindset. It's fuel. It's not something to squeeze in when everything else is done. Now, I know that this is probably the biggest challenge. So there's two things that my clients do. One, is prioritizing it in your calendar, but don't put thinking time or resting time or anything that somebody else in the team will think, well, that's not urgent and important, so I'm going to pop another meeting in over that. So I've got a client who has meetings with Marvin in her diary, Marvin is the paranoid android from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy with a brain the size of a planet. No one's asked who Marvin is, and she has been able to sort of earmark, an hour a week or for her rest and thinking time. Now, how much time that is going to be different for everybody. I mean, I do a lot of work around innovation, and Google were infamous for having Google time, which was 1 day a week working on your own things or doing something that wasn't like your core role. That's just impossible for any of the clients that I work with, for sure. But does that look like an hour a week for you? Does that look like 10 minutes a day where you go and walk around the block and get your thoughts together? It's finding what works for you. But fundamentally, if you are not prioritizing time for rest, time to fill your bucket, the bucket gets empty. Some clients will put in a meeting with strategic meeting with the most important person in the organization. Those meetings don't tend to get ruled over by other people. And if you manage a team, then help make it okay to put in time for resting and for thinking. So it's a massive mindset shift. Like, I know that I very much used to feel that in order to be doing my best work, I had to be at my desk doing work. That's me typing, if you can see me. I don't know if you can on your screen or not. And so this mindset shift, this is fuel. So this is Gary, my dog, who might get involved if the postman comes. You might hear him in a minute. And it's taken me a few years, but this is fuel. Me sitting on the beach with my dog, staring at the horizon, is my fuel. I come back from that feeling like I can conquer the world. The right-hand side, Gary in his life jacket with a client. We canoed up from, those of you based in Exeter, from the Quay up to Double Locks, because that was how we were doing our thinking about a team day that we were planning. I'm running an In the Room event tomorrow, and the speaker, we were having a chat about what they're going to talk about. And she said, I've just come back from a run. She's like, I've solved it all, because running for her is where she gets her fuel. So I know that you know this, but it's the practical act of doing it. And I'm a big believer in tiny steps to form habits. So what I'm going to ask you to see if you can do is, from today, can you get 5 minutes a day? 5 minutes a day, which is your fuel time. And then from there you can build. Thank you, Louise. I think Gary is adorable, but I am biased. Okay, so in order to be able to have time to fuel, to refuel, there's something about what you say no to free up maybe a little fraction of that time. And this is really difficult. Like, who's good at saying no? Not many people that I know. And I think when I've started to look into this, it's because, essentially we are human beings, are social animals. We survive because we rely on each other and we live in communities. So kind of really, like, in the essence of our pure survival, is that we are wired to help each other. And we are, when we are socialized, when we grow up, we want to please our parents, our grandparents, our friends, our teachers. We know that if we, work hard, pass exams, we do well. So I think we are sort of battling against kind of how we're wired in order to be able to say no. And some of the things that stop us saying no is that we get worried that we're going to be rude, or that we're going to be seen as unhelpful. But essentially, being able to say no in order that you can keep your bucket topped up is absolutely about self-care. So again, a lot of what I'm talking about requires a bit of a mindset shift, and it's difficult. So there's two kind of practical tips I'll give you to help you to say no. One, the next time someone asks you to do something and you look at the list and are like, I don't know when I'm going to do it, just pause and take a breath before you say anything. Don't let that emotional response of, like, I want to please, I want to be helpful, I want to be known as helpful, kind of get in the way. And the second thing is, perhaps rather than a blunt no, what some people find easier is a yes if. Yeah, I can do that piece of project work if the deadline is in 3 months' time, or yes, I can do this piece of work if you write me a really clear brief, so I'm 100% clear on what it is you're asking me to do and how much time it will take. So see if you can use the yes if the next time, rather than a knee-jerk reaction to a no, to a yes. Take a breath and don't, I guess, almost like remind yourself, I don't have to just say yes. I do have some control in this situation, and it is okay sometimes to be able to say no. Linking into that, you might have seen a model like this. This is from Stephen Covey, who wrote the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People. It's been around a long time, but I highly recommend you reading it if you're interested in anything to do with sort of influence, leadership and management. But he talks about circles of control and circles of influence, and you can use this to help you to build your resilience. So it's thinking about the things that are within our sphere of control and the things that we want to spend our energy on. That's Gary. I'm glad I gave you a warning. I'm going to see if I can keep going. No, he's going to kick off. 1 second. Hey, Gary, come here. Good boy. You're going to have to get involved. You're going to have to get involved. Come on, let me come. Good boy. Okay. Apologies. Right. Let me see how this works. So, Covey talks about what's in your circle of control, and that's the only thing that you should really be sort of worried about. So this is what's in your circle of control. Have a think. You might not be able to control what's happening, but you can control your response to it. You can control how you respond to situations. You can control in terms of what you say yes and no to. There's some things that are within your circle of influence. So, for example, you're really short-staffed and there might be a case to get a new member of the team or a volunteer. You can do some influencing with your managers and your colleagues to let them know that that's needed. But everything else is out of your control. So all the things that I talked about earlier, the pandemic, the decisions that the government might make, that is not within your control. So having a go at stopping fretting about that and just focus on what is your response to all of the things that are happening can have a massive impact on how you feel about the world. Like worrying about things, it's very hard not to do, but objectively worrying is a poor use of energy, because worrying doesn't solve something. But if you can at least limit your worry to the things that you can respond to and that are within your control, that can be more helpful. I'm sorry, I think he's going to have to sit on my shoulder, otherwise he's going to bark. Okay, so my next, how Gary barks is not within my control, unfortunately, but I can control how I respond to it. So I asked you earlier how you were feeling on a scale of 1 to 5, and you popped it in the chat. This is a great tool to use with your team. If we're thinking about motivation and resilience, one thing that I notice we're not particularly good at generally is asking for help, or being able to talk about what's going on and what's kind of on our mind. But this little scale of a 1 to 5, better than a 1 to 10, because there's more sort of grey area in the middle of a 1 to 10. It can help you know how your team's feeling, and they don't have to give a whole lots of words and narrative about why they're feeling in a particular way. It can help if you know where their energy's at, and some questions that you can ask that can be helpful if we're thinking about building people's resilience is, if you're a 2, well, how can I help you get to a 3? Or what needs to happen to get you up just a little fraction from where you are now? And obviously questions like, is there anything that you want to talk about? But that 1 to 5 scale is a really good conversation opener. I use it when I run workshops, because I can be quite high energy, and if people are feeling a 2 and I'm bowling at a 5, there's a tension there. So if I know everyone's a 2, I can adapt my style to meet their needs better as best I can. And the same applies to you with your colleagues, or if you manage a team. So use that scale of 1 to 5, see how you go. Right, the next thing, I've got 1 more little tip, 2 more little tips, and then I'm going to pop you into some breakout rooms. So this thing on listening skills, I've done quite a lot of work on this recently, and I don't think that we do it enough, especially when resilience is low. So I want you to start to pay even more attention to your listening skills than you already do. So 1 is around active listening, which is giving 100% of your attention to the person. So put your phone away, put distractions away, get the dog out of the room, and have eye contact. even if you're on a screen, look at the camera, not at the screen, not at the person on the screen. And, you know, give 100% of your effort and energy to listening to what the other person has to say. Don't interrupt, don't, you know, you might ask some questions, or you might make some sort of affirmative noises. But just giving the gift of listening to somebody can make a massive impact on how they're feeling. Often, have you ever done this where you've just been given space to talk, and by the end of the time you've kind of offloaded the things that have been on your mind, you feel much better and the person hasn't done anything. So again, this comes back to making time to do it. And I think sometimes we feel that we want to like fix things for people. If someone comes to you with a problem, your kind of gut reaction is like, oh, well, how can I help? What can I do to fix it? And I think if you just do really good listening, you don't have to fix something for somebody, which also means you can't get it wrong and you can't give bad advice. But just sitting there with them and listening to whatever it is, holding back on judgment, is a gift that is worth so much. I was doing some work with Katie Columbus, who was the director of comms at Samaritans, who's written an excellent book called How to Listen, which I really recommend. And for me, one of the things that she said when we were talking about this, she talked about an analogy, and she talked about, you know, imagine that a person has sort of climbed down into a big hole, and there's a ladder, and your listening skills isn't about heaving the person back up the ladder or standing at the top of the hole going, come on, you can do it. It's about going down and sitting with them at the bottom of that ladder and listening to them. And when they're ready, it's about climbing back up together. And for me, that really kind of hit home, because sometimes just the act of talking and knowing that you can be listened to can help way more than someone providing solutions that perhaps you're not quite ready to hear yet, because you haven't quite worked it, what the problem is, out in your mind sufficiently. So How to Listen by Katie Columbus, and I will share the book list at the end as well, is something I'll definitely recommend. And then finally, I may be preaching to the converted because you're here today, is about connection. As I said before, humans are social animals, whether you feel that you sit on the introverted or extroverted end of the spectrum, regardless of your style of work and interaction, we're fundamentally social animals. And now we're working from home, or we're working flexibly, and we don't connect with our colleagues in the same way. It's not the same having a Teams chat open as it is being in an office or going for a drink after work, or, you know, sitting down over a tea or a coffee. It's about being more deliberate about building your networks, which is why we're going to put you in breakout rooms, so you get a little opportunity to do a bit of networking. And it's also about being able to build those relationships, so you're able to ask your networks for help. But you have to have the network first to be able to go to them to ask for help, if that makes sense. And I think if you work in a team, or if you lead a team, it's finding opportunities to connect your team together is so massively important. And I know that I'm telling you things that you know, but I think sometimes it can be really difficult. You know, you want to get people together in a room for a day, and that costs budget now. It cost budget before, but budgets have changed. But I can't emphasize enough those opportunities to have real life connections with the people that you work with and for, because you know what it's like when you're in a room. You can see someone's body language. Someone might go, yeah, I'm fine, but you know that they're not. On Zoom or Teams, it's much harder to pick that up and then be able to give someone that space just to listen, because those interactions don't present themselves really easily. There's a couple of things that I do within my network. I do one thing called Random Connection, which is an online networking meeting. You get to meet 3 people one-to-one within an hour call. The next one's in May. And the other thing I do is Get It Done sessions, which are 2-hour sessions that you can come to all or some of, but we meet online, we say what we're going to get done, then we go for 45 minutes and we do it, and then we come back and check in. So it's a mix of using a technique called the Pomodoro technique, and it's accountability and network and connection all kind of baked in together. I will share a link in the chat when I can get my hands free. I'll share a link in the chat to sign up for my newsletter, where you'll get the details of the next ones of those and when they're coming up. And if you don't like it, you can unsubscribe at any time. So I'm going to pop you into breakout rooms, and I just want you to have a chat about what you're going to take away. But I think I'm going to not share my screen again after the breakout room. So I just want to give you a final, the summary slide. We're back to that little guy on the beach in his cape. So you are resilient. Otherwise you wouldn't be doing the job that you're doing. You're resilient already. And remember that, connect back to that, and connect back to why what you're doing is so important. And with that, because what you're doing is so important, you have to keep that bucket topped up. If you don't, you're not going to be able to do the best job that you can for your supporters, your beneficiaries, and your colleagues that you work with. So you need to keep your bucket topped up and help other people to top up theirs. Time to rest is your fuel, and encourage your colleagues to rest as well. Practice saying no. Just get practicing it on something like low stakes. Next time someone asks you something, oh, I don't know, would you like a coffee with that? Would you like to go large on those chips? No, thank you. Be assertive. Practice those listening skills and really be more deliberate about the connections that you're making. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I feel like I've rattled through, which I have, but I'm hoping that I've been able to give you some practical tips, because I think you know a lot of this stuff already, but it's what's the practical things that you can do. So if it's okay, I'm going to ask, I just want to say BFG because it's such a great acronym. Gary, don't lick my face. To pop you into breakout rooms where you get the opportunity to connect and have a chat about what you're taking away from today. We'll come back into the main room and we'll do a little bit of feedback if anyone would like to share, and then we'll have time for questions then as well. Is that okay? And look, Gary, you can see Gary's face. You don't want to see his backside. Such a good boy. Oh, sorry about Gary.
That's okay, no problem. All right, I think everyone's in groups of, I think actually between 3 and 4, so 2, 3 and 4. I created 9 in the end about you. So yeah, I think 1 or 2 people haven't gone in. Oh no, I think everyone's in.
Everyone's in now. So it's 36 now. So if we bring them back at 45, it normally takes a minute to get them back in, and then we've got 5 minutes of feedback and 10 minutes for questions. Is that okay?
I just put a timer on for, what's that, 9 minutes?
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. Make sure.
And what you can do is pause the recording now, and then you can press go again when they come back. And talk about remember to record it again.
Yes.
I'm interested in 2 things. Did anyone have any feedback from being in those breakout rooms that I think would be helpful to share with the rest of the group? And I can hear someone off mute, a little background noise. So if you're not talking, if you're on mute, that's brilliant. Thank you. So I'm interested to hear if there's any feedback from within your breakout groups that you think would be helpful to share with the whole room, or if you have any questions, or if you're doing any of this stuff already, or if you've got some other tips that you think would be helpful. Go for it. Pop your hand up so we can see, and take yourself off of mute. Have we got Joshua? Hello.
Hi. I kind of like 2 big takeaways from what you were saying. I really like the idea of the book of truths. I think at the moment there's a lot of, it's really easy to focus on all the negative that's going on around us. And I think moving that spotlight to some of the positive things, I think could help really shift mindsets, and encouraging others to do the same. So it's not just you kind of like hoarding that knowledge of how to feel better, it's also sharing that with others.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's not about just sort of mindless optimism. We're not saying that the bad stuff isn't happening, but within the whole context, look, there's some good stuff that's happened for me and my team this week or month. Yeah, it really helps.
I think for me, I was looking to try and do that anyway, and I think this is just given quite a practical tool on how to actually do that thing that I was trying to look to do. The other thing is I really like the get it done sessions. I've got ADHD, and one of the things we use is a term called body doubling, which is essentially what you're suggesting with that thing is, I know I get stuff done when I'm sat with other people. Like, they're not telling me to do stuff, but we just get stuff done because it's that joint responsibility. And I think mixing it with that bit of networking, and I think that seems really cool. And I definitely think I want to explore and work out how I could put that into practice.
Great. The get it done sessions work really well. So I will, I'll find that link. Hang on. Oh, actually, Sophie, would you mind, I'm a bit hand tied, would you mind going up to the top of the chat and repasting that link in, so you can sign up to mine, but also you could do it in your own organisation. It's just something that co-working session, something that's easy to organise. So great, let us know how you get on with those. Sorry about my dog's tail. Kelly, hiya.
Hello, thanks for a great session. We were just sort of reflecting on the book of truths as well, but in a slightly different way to what Joshua was just saying. In terms of, I think as fundraisers, we're all very good at sort of ringing the bell or having a little bit of a celebration when those big amounts of money come in. But I think we all then, because we've all had those huge successes before, we're then also like quite sort of dismissive of the very small things. And I'm the same. I know that, I recognize that even before this session. And I was just reflecting on how I actually have a paper planner for my workload that even has an achievement section and I never fill it in. So we were just saying it would be nice to just try and actually do those small wins. Maybe it's about the quality of something we've worked on as opposed to the result. Maybe it's something in our personal lives. Maybe it is just, I had a great conversation with someone, or, I've made impact in another way, as opposed to just thinking about money and success.
I've got two things to add to that. I think you're absolutely right. And that massive win, there was a million little steps that added up to that win across the whole team and organisation. That a massive win doesn't just fall out of the sky. There's a lot of work that goes into it. So recognising those little steps along the way is so important. And for people outside of fundraising, like the service delivery team that told you a great story that you used in Appeal, like joining those dots and those little wins are really important. And I think there's something that you said about it's not just celebrating the wins. So another book reference that I'll give you, or a TED talk maybe, is Carol Dweck and her work around growth mindset and fixed mindset. So growth mindset is around the effort that you put in, you can improve your results, improve your intelligence. Fixed mindset is like, we're not going to get any better no matter how hard we work. And Dweck's work would say, no, it's not just about the win, it's about the effort that is put in, and rewarding for effort is more important than rewarding for success when it comes to a growth mindset. And if growth mindset, I didn't talk about this today specifically, but it feeds into resilience. If you're like, you have a growth mindset and you're like, okay, we didn't get the win yet, that is all about building your resilience. So Carol Dweck and her work on growth mindset is definitely something to take a look at. I'll find the TED talk and share it. I'm just looking in the Ellie's comment in the chat. If you're stuck in a silo of one, definitely collaborate and problem solve with people outside of your organization. In fact, I'd say that that's a deliberate tactic, because people outside of your organization won't have the same biases that you do. You can often get like the questions they'll ask will be different because they don't know your organization, which can be massively helpful. But come along to a get it done session, because even just being in a Zoom room with other people helps to, if you're feeling stuck in a silo of one, that can be really helpful. Joshua, thank you ever so much for popping that in the chat, the link to Carol Dweck's TED talk. Okay, we've got a few more minutes. Does anyone have any other questions or things that they're taking away that would be helpful to share with the whole group?
Whether there's anything that you can suggest for people who are sole fundraisers. Obviously, a lot of very small charities either work with freelancers or they just have one person who's trying to kind of do it all. If there's any kind of top tips that you could suggest for them.
Great question. So, I mean, if you're a sole fundraiser and you're already here, then excellent. Connect into more networks. Be more deliberate about the networks that bring you energy. I don't mean go to every networking event and just sort of be relentlessly on Zoom and showing up, but have a think about what is it that you need. So many years ago, I volunteered for VSO, and the training that you did to set you up to go to a foreign country where you didn't know anyone was actually pretty life-changing. I didn't realize it at the time, but they get you to do something called a me map. Now, hang on, Gary's off. Go on, off you go then, but just be quiet. They get you to do something called a me map, and I know I've written a blog about this recently, so I'll find it. But they get you to list all the things that you need, from different people, and then put people's names against it. And then when you move to your different location, you know your needs, and then you've got to kind of find them from the local people and friends and connections that you make. So it's that principle for a sole fundraiser. Write your list of what you need. Do you need someone who knows more than you about fundraising? Do you need someone that you can bounce ideas with? Do you need someone that knows nothing to bounce ideas with? Do you need the person that goes, come on, you can do this? When write down all of those needs, and then you can figure out what networks or what specific people you go to achieve what you need. So that might be specific people, or it might be a network like this, or it might be one of my Get It Done sessions, for example. But you kind of need to know what you need and not just sort of network for the sake of networking. I think being deliberate, because back to that thing about time, we don't have tons of time. So just giving it a little bit of thought. That would be my starter for 10. But are there sole fundraisers here that already do some of this, that have got tips for other people?
Well, I regret to say, unfortunately, that we've only got another 4 minutes left of this session. So given that you just mentioned time, so I think maybe there's another session we can do specifically for sole fundraisers later in the year. So I'm very sorry that we have to wrap up what was starting to be a really interesting conversation. However, we will be putting the recording of this session up on our Vimeo channel in a couple of days, once I've got it all sorted out. We were able to pause it and not stop it completely in the middle during that breakout session. So hopefully it'll all come together okay. So just before we wrap up, a quick reminder that with the thank you email that goes out tomorrow, there's a reminder to fill out the feedback form, and we will share the slides once you've done that. So that's be great if you could do that. And that also includes if you've got any ideas for future sessions. We do take them very seriously, and we do try and accommodate everybody's suggestions as far as we can. And on that, our next event is in April. I think it's on the 26th of April. And it will be about hybrid events with an organisation called Frog. And that one will be later in the day. We think probably 2 p.m. or 3 p.m. to accommodate the fact that they will be coming to us from America. We did that, I think, with our crypto session earlier in the year. And then in May, we've got ethical and problematic fundraising and philanthropy with Mike Zwiener from Lime Green Consulting. That sounds like it's a good one and very topical. In July, we'll have another session, possibly putting the opposite view or a contrasting view about philanthropy from Emma Beeston and Ronnie Brown. Emma's quite a well-known sort of commentator on philanthropy and works with Beth Breeze at Kent University. And Ronnie Brown, of course, is well known as being the philanthropy director at Quartet Community Foundation. And our June event is still in the planning, and it's actually an idea that I've come up, which is about how to fundraise for the completely new. And I'm looking for some ideas. So if anyone wants to get in touch with me with any suggestions or interesting speakers on this, I'd be really grateful. And that's really about how do we start fundraising for, say, a completely new organisation or a completely new facility or a new service. How do we start from scratch? So that's our June session, which we also hope will be, well, we're planning an in-person event. We just need to confirm a venue. So hopefully it'll be nice and sunny. We can be even outside. Yeah, we'll look forward to seeing you in person then. So finally, a very, very big thank you to Lucy, who's done a fantastic job, really kind of motivating. And I hope you'll all go away and feel like you can build your resilience, build your confidence, and feel motivated to get back to your day jobs. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Take care.
Okay, and I'm going to close the session. Thank you very much. I'm just letting everybody scoot off, and then I'll say, just wanted to say a personal thank you to Lucy for a great session. That was really, really good. Yeah.
Oh, I hope so. I mean, goes quick, doesn't it? Hopefully there was some practical things that people can take away. That was my intention. So
thank you ever so much, Lucy. It was great. I think the breakout room worked really well. It was great to have a chat with some other people.
Of course you were in it. You're brilliant.
Yeah, it was great. Turned out that I was with another fundraiser that I know very well, who's a personal friend, and somebody that is now just been employed by a previous colleague, and so it was really lovely. Yeah, all Bristol based, so it was good to have a chat.
Okay, fantastic. Right, well, I'm going to close the session now because I've got
a couple
minutes.
Yeah. So, okay, thanks ever so much, Lucy. See you soon. Cheers.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye. Oops.